Greetings, everyone. I'm at the Donnell C. Kennard Veteran Cemetery here in Institute, West Virginia. I wanted to come down here and show you all the cemetery and pay respects to a particular veteran. He served alongside my great-grandfather during the Civil War, and not only did he serve with my great-grandfather, he earned the nation's highest honor, the Congressional Medal of Honor, for his brave deeds on May 22nd, 1863 at Vicksburg. I'll go ahead and tell you about it while we walk along. May 18th, 1863, the 4th West Virginia Infantry arrived in Vicksburg, Mississippi to link up with Sherman's 15th Corps. May 19th, Grant, who wanted the city terribly bad, he was charged by President Abraham Lincoln. Lincoln had told Grant, the key to victory is Vicksburg, and we must get that key in our pocket. So, May 19th, General Grant ordered a charge on the Confederate works surrounding the city of Vicksburg. Well, it was a complete disaster. Many men were lost, many men were wounded. I know the commander, Major Goodspeed of the 4th West Virginia, was shot and killed during this charge. So they withdrew. General Grant and General Blair had talked. They said, well, what can we do? Because we've got to get this city. They were worried about Confederate General Joseph Johnston swinging down. I believe he had like 35,000 men. They were worried about him swinging down and helping Vicksburg. Now, Joseph Johnston never did come to Vicksburg's aid, but at the time, Grant did not know this. Had he done that, had Joseph Johnston swung down, that battle probably would have rivaled Gettysburg as far as scale, and it probably would have been a Confederate victory. But Johnston never came down. So General Grant, General Blair talked about it. They was like, well, during the first charge, our men found that there was a trench about 6 foot deep, probably about 10, 12 feet across. And behind that, a little way behind that, was the Confederate earthworks. Now, these were about, I believe, 17 feet high. Confederates had dug in well. Anyhow, they said, what can we do? They said, well, here's the idea. Here's the idea. They got together, got the idea. They said, well, look, we're going to call for 150 volunteers. And the only stipulation for a volunteer to volunteer, he cannot be a married man. He has to be single. So, they got their, actually over 300 applied to volunteer. They only needed 150. So they got to 150, and they told him, you're going to charge toward the Confederate works. You're not going to be armed. You're going to have timbers, planks, and ladders. And your job is to lay those planks and timbers across that trench so Sherman's Corps can run across them. And then, of course, they had ladders as well, and then we can scale the earthworks and take the city. Well, sound like a good plan. So, 150 men, they got their timbers, they started the charge, which was about a quarter mile through open country, heavily defended. They charged across the field. The Confederates started firing. This was about 10 a.m. Anyhow, one volunteer from the Illinois unit, his recount of it was a hurricane of shot and shell. Bullets constantly whizzing by you, hitting the ground. It's just like no man could survive this. One of the flag bearers He was charging across the way. At one point, his flagstaff was actually shot in two. He picked up the flag, charged toward the enemy. By the time he got to this 6-foot deep trench and placed his flag into position, half the flag had been blown away. That's just how much firepower that they threw on these 150 men. Well, they made it. They laid the planks. They planted the flag under constant enemy firing. At one point, above the earthworks, the Confederates actually tried to aim the cannons down toward those men in that trench, but the angle was off and they could not do it. Well, these guys were in the trench, hoping that Sherman's 15th Corps was right on their heels. They looked back, there was nothing. Communications went bad, and by the time Sherman had got everything together and led the charge, well, the element of surprise was gone. The Confederates knew they were coming, and they poured everything they had on Sherman's 15th Corps. Well, he charged. They withdrew. Some of the guys who volunteered on the Forlorn Hope, the storming party, the 150 unarmed men, they was in the trench. And some of them, when Sherman withdrew, some of them took a chance and withdrew with the rest of Sherman's 15th Corps. Some of the guys are like, well, we're just going to wait this out till it gets dark. So they spent probably about 9-10 hours till it got dark, and they returned back to their lines. And out of the 150 men that charged across with timbers, planks, and ladders, hoping to take the Confederate defense, 81 survived out of 150. And nearly all 81 of those men were wounded in some way, shape, or form. And here's the man I've come to visit. Private James C. Summers, Medal of Honor, Company H, 4th West Virginia Infantry. He did not receive his Medal of Honor till 1895. I think it was like 2 weeks after his 57th birthday. All the men that survived got the Congressional Medal of Honor. So 81 were presented. The other fellows that were killed, at the time, they didn't award a medal if you were killed. Thankfully, they changed that. But at the time, you had to basically survive the act to receive the medal. And Mr. Summers, he had to wait 32 years to get it, but he got it. And there was 3 others of the 4th West Virginia who received the Medal of Honor that day for the actions they did that day. There's a guy named Buckley. He's buried in Georgia. A fellow named Bumgardner, also with the 4th West Virginia. He's buried in Illinois. And a fellow named North. I couldn't find anything about North. But here's the 4th who received the Medal of Honor for charging the Confederate works. May 22nd, 1863. Yeah, after the losses of Sherman's charge, it was like 3,000 men killed or wounded. And Grant, he just shook his head basically, and they pretty much said, well, we're going to have to lay siege. So they sieged the city for, I think it was 5-6 weeks. On July 4th, 1863, the city of Vicksburg surrendered to the Union forces. And the rest, of course, is history. Here's a flag for your service. Thank you very much, sir. It's a shame you had to wait 32 years to get your medal, but you got it. Yes, it's just a beautiful cemetery out here. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did bringing it to you. So like I said, it was a real treat to find this man's grave. Like I said, he served with my grandfather, and I still can't find my grandfather's grave, but I guess I'm getting closer. Thank you all so much for watching, and don't forget me to like and share my video, and I appreciate each and every one of you. God bless.